Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, welcome everybody. Please give me a few minutes. I'm going to start unmuting everybody. We'll start at 7:05. As I come through and unmute you, please mute yourself. Take me a few minutes to get through everybody one at a time. Anthony, please mute yourself. Alejandro, please mute yourself.
Yeah, sure can.
Thank you. Evan, Juan, please unmute yourself. Kevin,
Yep.
please mute yourself.
As you said that.
Ian, please mute yourself. Saeed as well. Alejandro, please mute yourself. There we go. Ian, I still show you as being unmuted, so please do that.
Okay, I'll try
Ian
again.
Yoder and Ian Sullivan both. Sorry, I forget there's two Ians on the call. I apologize. Ian Yoder, please mute yourself.
Hello. Can anyone hear me?
Yep,
Is this Mr. Buckman?
this is.
Oh, right on. So how many people are in this webinar, or am I the only one?
There are 41, 42 as of right now.
Oh, right on. And can I only hear you, or can you only hear me, or can I hear everyone in the group?
Everybody can hear everybody, but we're all muted right now, and so the policy is to mute yourself when you're not talking so we don't have background noise, and unmute yourself if you would like to talk or participate.
Gotcha. And to mute myself, I just hit the green button?
Yes, yes, that's correct.
Sweet.
We'll wait 2 more minutes and then we'll get going.
You've been unmuted, Jonathan. Grandpa heard us.
Ian Yoder, please mute yourself. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and get going. I may pop in and out of full screen every once in a while just to check on things with the webinar, but otherwise, we'll get moving. So we're going to talk about mass confrontation tonight. We're going to just briefly review the sort of protocols and what we do, the training stuff, and then just watch some videos and be out of here. I'm going to try my best. We've been stretching on to about 8:30. I'm going to try my best to get us back down to an hour because we've been doing a lot of extra video analysis, and I want to try to honor everybody's time a little bit better. So housekeeping items for anybody who is new. We have a number of referees, referee coaches, instructors, assessors on the call, along with referees. This training session is geared specifically for referees, and so all instructors and assessors are muted permanently. If you have questions or thoughts, you're welcome to send those to me via the question app, or you can text me or email me, and I will get back to them. As you've probably heard me say a few times, keep yourself muted so we're not hearing background noise. If we had 50 people on a call and we heard everybody's background noise, it wouldn't work very well. So, but definitely unmute yourself at any point if you want to ask questions or participate. And I definitely encourage you to do that. So moving on, I thought in honor of the MPSL season starting in a couple of weeks that we would talk about mass confrontation. So here goes. Just some brief, we're going to go through this stuff quickly because it should be refreshers for everybody on the call, but just in case it's not. There's a difference between game disrepute, it's been a long day, game disrepute and mass confrontation. So game disrepute is just a minimum of one player from each team. So if you got one guy from each team and they're getting into each other, that's just game disrepute. Aggressive behavior, provocative behaviors, doesn't matter who it's directed towards. Obviously, these are problems. Most commonly happens with dead ball situations. If it happens not in a dead ball situation, I'm guessing it will be a dead ball situation soon because you're going to blow the whistle and stop play to deal with it. And obviously, if not dealt with, can lead to mass confrontation. So we're going to see some videos tonight of referees who got there quick enough to deal with it and others who didn't, and what can come of that. Mass confrontation, obviously 3 or more players in total. Aggressive behavior, be it intimidation, physical contact, and potential for misconduct. And again, doesn't matter if it's directed toward officials or players. If 3 or more players surround the referee, that's a mass confrontation because they are being confrontational and there's 3 or more of them. So definitely doesn't matter if it's players or referees. The most common one we see, obviously, is players getting into each other and us having to sort it out. So that is our most common situation that we deal with as referees. But there are some clips, I didn't choose them for today's session, but there are some clips out there where a number of people gather around the referee. So things to be thinking about. This is something that we need to discuss in our pre-games. What happens if we get into game disrepute, and what can we do to keep it from becoming a mass confrontation? At what point do we not intercede and just let them do what they're going to do? And how do we respond when we get to that point? So there's at least 3 stages you need to talk about, depending on what level of game you're doing, probably more, to talk about what to do when you see the warning signs, which we'll talk about in a second, what to do if you can prevent it, and then once it's unpreventable, what to do during a mass confrontation. So we need to cover those things in pregame conferences. And not only what to do, but where on the field they happen and who goes where when they happen. Because you'll see at least one clip here where an assistant referee's primary responsibility is just making sure the players in the technical areas don't come out. And you have to talk through whose job it is when mass confrontations happen on different parts of the field. Warning signs, obviously. If the safety of a player has been endangered in some way, players are going to react to it. The location on the field, if it happens right in front of the technical area, is probably going to be a problem. If it happens in the goal mouth and the goalkeeper's involved, probably going to be a problem. So there are hints about where on the field you are and where you need to be, or where your awareness needs to be heightened. And then obviously knowing who your playmakers are, because if they're targeting one player in particular, other players are going to come in to defend him if you don't. And then obviously when things start to arise, intervening and diffusing quickly. Getting in there quickly and dealing with it is the best and oftentimes the only way to keep it from getting worse. And you'll see some examples tonight where referees did that, and other examples where they didn't. And we'll talk about the outcomes of those things when they're not taken. Warning signs, and again, a lot of these are obvious. The severity of a foul. Oftentimes, a big tackle leads to something else, and so we should be able to recognize those things. The area of contact, if something happens in the face or the back of the legs or the knees, where there's potential danger to the player, you're going to see problems. The skill level of the player, obviously, if it's the playmaker, like we just talked about, there's going to be problems. What is the score of the game? Is it 5-0 and somebody comes in for a really difficult challenge when they really don't need to? That's going to get people upset. So it's not always just the nature of what happens, but the circumstances around the game. Challenges off the ball, if something's going on behind play or off the ball, those are things we have to be heightened for. Situations where players on the ground, we're going to see a few of those tonight where there were probably a couple opportunities for referee to blow the whistle when a player was on the ground, even if it's just for the sake of stopping play and not letting anything happen. But referee didn't, and suddenly we have a problem on our hands. So there are definitely times when players are on the ground and getting into each other that it's probably just safer to blow the whistle. Goalkeeper collisions obviously are a big deal. Anytime the goalkeeper's involved, we have to have much heightened awareness. And then set pieces, drop zones being usually the most dangerous area. So if players are pushing and shoving and holding each other in the penalty area on a corner kick or a free kick, those are areas that we have to be concerned about also. Hopefully this is just review for everybody, so we'll go through it quickly. If we can't avoid it and we can't keep it from happening, we use the triangle of control. Hopefully this is not new information to anybody here, but if it is, the three referees get onto the field all together and create a triangle around the mass confrontation so that we all three have different angles of view into the conflict and can see what is going on. You want to avoid all standing next to each other and dealing with it, because then you're all looking at the same thing. And when you've got a big mass of bodies together, particularly in the professional game, it's hard to see everything. So establish this area of control where everybody's on different sides of the situation. Observe, try to keep it from escalating any further if you can, but these are definitely reactionary things to do once it can't be avoided. If it gets to be too many people or it's too dangerous to be inside of it, exit it, get outside of it, set up a triangle around it, and watch everything and write down numbers. Keep it in your head or write down who needs to be dealt with. And then obviously when all is said and done, come together as a crew, get everything sorted out, and issue any misconduct and get the game re-going. So again, it's just a basic concept of how to get around and deal with a situation once it starts. Management, obviously be prepared. That comes back to the pregame. Be prepared with what you're going to do if it happens. Be prepared by knowing who the players are on the field who are going to create problems, and watch out for them. Recognizing that quickly. Again, we're going to see some videos where really good referees have kept something from escalating by realizing quickly that there was a potential problem and being closer to it when it started to become a problem and acting very, very quickly on the issues that are taking place. The triangle of control, again, you need to talk about this in your pregame. This is how we do it. We observe, we record, we issue misconduct, restart, and then obviously your game report needs to have all of these details. If this is new information for you, I would encourage you to go and download the grade 7 referee course on US Soccer's Dropbox, because it has the whole mass confrontation slide deck for how to deal with this situation. I've pulled out just the quick bullet points here. Before we move on to video analysis, any questions on this? Is this new to anybody? Now is the time to speak up anonymously and let us know if you're hearing something for the first time, if you have any questions, or if something doesn't make sense. It's okay if this is the first time you're hearing it. Just pop on real quick and let us know if something's not making sense before we go look at videos.
Hey, Matt, this is Kevin Pham. I just wanted to jump in and just ask a quick question about how do we determine when is the line to really get involved and physically touch a player to maybe prevent them from engaging in contact with another opponent, or when to just not even get involved at all and just kind of let them hash it out there?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's unfortunately the answer is different for everybody. If you're in a USL level game, then absolutely touch the players. And you're going to see a lot of examples of that today. If you are in an NPSL game and everybody's been pretty cool with you and you've got good relationships, then yeah, you're welcome to touch people. If you're in an NPSL game and everybody's been real testy and they've been mad at you all day, I wouldn't touch anybody. Let them sort it out. Every situation is different. Every game is different. If you're 5'3" and everybody involved in the mass confrontation is 6 feet tall, maybe don't grab people. Unfortunately, I have to say this, but if you're a woman, maybe not grab the male players because that might be a little bit dangerous for you. If you're in a women's game, men don't grab the players, obviously. So there's the gender issue that has to be talked about. There's the circumstances around the game with the quality of the players and the quality of the league that you're in. In the USL, it's going to be very, very rare for a player to punch a referee or swing out at a referee because those are their careers. And if they do something that stupid, then they're never going to play again. They're not going to make money playing the game anymore. And so there's a heightened level of responsibility that doesn't exist in the NPSL or the PDL or your local amateur game. If you're doing a high-level DA game, yeah, I would say go ahead and grab the players again. But, is it a men's game? Is it a women's game? Are you a female referee? Everybody responds to those things differently. And so you have to, I think, take it on a case-by-case basis. And the underlying message for everything is if you're not comfortable, then just disengage and let them sort it out and you can take care of it. Because at the end of the day, we want to do what we can to prevent. But if at any point you as the referee is uncomfortable with anything, then don't do it. If you don't want to get in there between a bunch of big dudes, then don't do it. That's okay. If you're smaller and you don't want to wait in there, no problem. Don't do it. At the end of the day, it's their responsibility to behave professionally. And when they don't, if we can help them get out of that situation, then great. At the end of the day, though, it's their responsibility. And I would never ask a referee or an assistant referee or a fourth official to do something they were uncomfortable with to try to stop a mass confrontation.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. There was probably a very convoluted answer and probably didn't answer the question, but it's a tough one to answer.
That was good. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think the growth for us is we're taught as youth referees to never touch a player, and the game that we're all training for, that's just not practical or reasonable. And it's how you do it and when you do it that becomes important. And we'll look at some of those tonight. As usual, we're going to dive right into clips. I've got 8 clips, and there are plenty more out there if you want to go and look, and I can provide them if you'd like. But I figured we'd start with 8 of them. We'll see some good examples to start, so we can analyze them, and then we'll look at some perhaps not as good examples, and then a couple of unique examples where we can dive into it. So I want a national referee to volunteer to lead us through the first clip based on all the stuff that we talked about. So who wants to volunteer? Come on, who wants to volunteer? All right, Zapata, you still on the call?
I'm here.
All righty, I just volunteered you. So
Sounds good.
go watch on YouTube. For those of you that don't want to watch on the slow broadcast here, I apologize. It's just a feature of the program you use that it doesn't show videos really well. But I'm going to play it here. Go watch Mass Confrontation #1 on the YouTube clips that I sent out a little while ago. And we'll come back and talk about it here in a second. So let's watch it once first, all the way through.
Wide open in the box and a great finish from him. A lot of times you'll see guys get that wrong, miss the target entirely. But very good technique. And that's a dangerous foul. Zatella there. Look out. There's Zatella. Danny Zatella has a way of getting under opponent's skin. Played with Danny Zatella last year.
All right. Mikey, what do you got?
Okay. Well, overall, first we'll say that I think it was, without seeing the sanctions given, I think it was handled well by the referees, and you can see the referee after the confrontation happens, sprinting there, getting there, already showing he's going to try to sanction. He's thinking about it, but his first action is to separate the main culprit there, number 14, from the Cosmos. So he's getting control of the situation in that respect. And looking through the considerations for confrontation, referee remains calm. I don't think he got too close because he moved him out of the way. And as far as original or initial offenders punished appropriately, we don't see that. But I think that being that he has identified 14 and separated him, he probably does deal with him appropriately after, I would assume. Any excessive contact there in the confrontation. Again, I didn't notice any, and we can't talk about their sanctions. Does the referee touch or push players? So to go on along with our previous discussion about that, yeah, he definitely does. He does so to get the player out of the way. He does so to keep other players from moving in, and he does so to show that he's identified who the player is that he needs to move away from further confrontation. The ARs come in and they get a good vantage point, so you can see that they're dealing with anyone else. One of the ARs comes and deals with the opposing goalkeeper who comes in from further away, keeps him out of the way. So overall, I think dealt with fine as far as who they're looking at. You can see the referee talking to his AR, getting communication. They have the headset. For what it's worth, I think in terms of where this stems from, if you start from the very beginning, the main person who comes in with the challenge that is eventually called for a foul, number 14 from Cosmos, he's in a challenge right at the beginning, and it looks like could be a simple foul against him, but now you've got some things to consider as far as what we talked about for flashpoints. A player's on the ground, 14's got the ball, loses it because that player on the ground kicks it, and then now you have just a big collection of players that are moving. Some are on the ground, and suddenly this flashpoint, I think, is starting to build because you have the nature of the players and their positions, and a loose ball, and then you have this lunging tackle where the player gets ball, but he comes lunging in from a far distance, and so that increases the intensity of the play, in my opinion. And now 14, who just witnesses the opposing team commit a lunging tackle against his teammate with a still loose ball, now he probably has his intensity raised, and then goes in for that final foul where he doesn't even go for the ball, knocks the player down. So flashpoints, I think, are key in recognizing the intensity here, so that hopefully this can be avoided. But as far as once it happens, referee showed good urgency to get there and identify the players, separate them. Fourth is dealing with the triangle of control. But that's as much as I got there without seeing the sanctions.
All right, that's a really good analysis. For anybody who's listening on, that's the kind of thinking that we want to be thinking about every moment. So just to recap, I think this could have been prevented. There were probably 3 or 4 opportunities where the referee could have called a foul in this center part of the area. One being here, but we don't get a good look, so we give him the benefit of the doubt. The one that in particular bothers me is this challenge. And so referees, when we do field training sessions and we focus on quick dynamic movement from side to side, Does the referee have any view of this foul whatsoever? No. A tackle's gone over the top of the ball, boot exposed, and he's trailing it. And he's trailing it because if you watch his movement prior to that, he's just sort of very lightly jogging around. He's not doing any kind of quick dynamic movement. Whereas if he moves quickly to the side, perhaps he gets a better angle of view there and can blow the whistle. Either way, there's a series of 3 or 4 situations all in a very, very short span, and any one of them he could have blown the whistle and kept this from happening by just calling a simple foul somewhere. Once you start to get 3, 4, 5, 6 challenges in a really tight area, one right after the other, usually something bad's going to follow. And that's something we have to be sensitive to. So A, it could have been avoided by a simple foul earlier. But once we get there, we get that big one. Now, again, we talk about proximity to technical area, definitely things to be thinking about. Again, if we know that this player here with the gloves on was the one who committed the rash challenge over the ball, then we should know that he's going to go and get really upset here in a second, which he does. So, avoidable, probably, but once we're in it, we're in it. So, here we go. The next technique thing that's worth showing is how quickly the fourth official moves right away to get over there. Good recognition of a potential problem. I would have liked to see him run and grab a hold of the coach so that the coach doesn't come onto the field, because at the end of the day, this coach does come on. Now, it's close enough to the technical area, and he comes on in a peacemaking mode, so okay, we live with it. But an ideal scenario, quicker dynamic motion from the fourth official to get over and get the coach back so that that's off the field. Speaking about the referee, and Kevin, this is where we come back to grabbing a hold of a player. Gets himself in there and immediately creates separation right there between the problem player and everybody else who wants to go get him. So this is a tactic as referees. If you're going to go in there and try to keep it from happening, the most effective thing you can do is to isolate the source of the problem. And by the source of the problem, I don't necessarily mean the player who committed the foul or the player who, is out getting everybody. It's who out there is everybody else wanting to get a hold of. And right now, it's number 14. At the professional level and the levels just below it, they're not going to go after you if you're standing between the guy they want and them. They're not going to push you. They're not going to hit you to get out of the way. And so as soon as he gets his body in there, nobody can go and get him. So a tactic you can use here is to grab a hold of the person that is the source of the problem, the one that everybody wants to get at. Grab a hold of them, get your body between them, and move them away from the area, which this referee does a really, really great job here. He not only gets his body there, but then he grabs him by the arms and the shoulders and moves him away from the problem area. You see, he's got a hold of him here and physically pushes him out of it and gets his body at all times. So he moves him a good 5 yards away from the problem area because all the bodies are going to be stuck together, and now he's got him out of that. So you remove the problem away from the area and let everybody else sort it out, because everybody else in there is mad at that guy, not at each other. They're going to get it sorted out usually. And then importantly, doesn't let go of him. And there's a tactic here I want you to realize. He keeps the player behind him, holding on to him, but facing everybody else. So once he's out of that situation, get turned around, but keep a hold of him and watch everything else so that you're seeing who's coming at you. Keeps him the whole time, holding on to him the whole time, never letting him go. See how his arms tucked back around his waist? He's never going to let go of him. And even after he's talking to the AR, he never lets go of him. Still holding on to him. Still holding on to him. So he's now held on to him for probably the better part of about 30 seconds. And that's really important because A, he's the guy you're going to caution anyway. And smart players will try to disappear in the mess in case you didn't catch their number. And so by holding on to him, he's making sure the guy he knows for sure he has to come back and sanction, he knows exactly where he is all the time because he's got a hold of him. and he's helping him and he's saving him. So the player right now thinks he's helping him when really he's holding on to him to make sure, A, nobody else gets to him, but B, he knows where the sanction needs to be. So a couple of really great tactics in here that we can take away on how to deal with a mass confrontation like this. Get in there, grab the source of the problem, remove them from the problem area, and hold on to them, turn around and keep everybody in your line of sight. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I have one question, Mr. Buckman.
Who is
Did
it?
that player number 14 actually receive a caution for his challenge?
Yes, he did.
All right, yep, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay.
I think,
Yeah,
I just want to add one more thing to it. I agree with the separating the player, isolating him, but 14 was very cooperative in that regard. And if the player is not going to be cooperative, if he's going to basically move through you and continue going to be combative against the other team and stick his chest out, then there may be only so much you can do in a short amount of time. You might want to start considering, getting away from the mess to get a view if you can't do anything about it.
absolutely.
Because that player is not cooperating.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to note that if escalation continues and they, knock your arm out of the way and go back into it, then fine. That's on them now. Don't put yourself at risk. Don't put yourself in danger to keep it happen. So this works because the guy cooperates. Sometimes they don't cooperate as much. Sometimes you can keep a hold of them and it works. Usually at the professional level, you're going to be all right with this. Where it gets a little bit messy a lot of the time is in your MPSL games, your PDL games, where there's a little bit less discipline out on the field. So excellent point, Mike. Thanks for bringing that to our attention as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, who wants to take the next one? Don't make me choose somebody. All right, Eligio.
Matt, I can do it.
Eligio Adeguin, unmute yourself. You're up.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm with you, man.
We're going to watch Mass Confrontation number 2. We'll watch it through its entirety, and then we'll come back and comment on it. All right.
Okay, so first thing I notice about this clip, at least in relation to the other, is that from what we can see in the play leading up, there aren't as many classic warning signs, at least in terms of increasing severity of fouls. It looks from what we can see like it's just that challenge. Now, of course, we don't know, looking at the clip, what the temperature of the game is like overall, but we're looking at last 5 minutes. Home team up 2-0. It's actually the the Tulsa player who gets fouled, so he's on the losing team, and obviously he shows a lot of frustration in his response. So even though there aren't fouls leading up to the incident, it is a dangerous foul once it does occur. So I think the referee does an excellent job of responding quickly. You can see that his priority in running in, similar to the first clip, is to separate the problem player, the player who committed the foul, and he persists in keeping his body between the player who committed the foul and everyone else. He gets help in this case from teammates of the player who got kicked because they managed to keep him away from the initial incident. You also see the assistant referees getting in remarkably quickly, so I commend them for that. And then once things have calmed down and players from both teams are separated, the referee quickly administers the misconduct, caution for each. The only concern that I have there is in his decision to bring those two players back together so quickly when, although the immediate tension is sort of calmed down, they may still be upset with each other. So I question whether or not you want to bring players face to face like that so soon after an incident. And, in this case, it works out. Nothing comes of it, but I think that's one area for concern. So overall, good quick response. Good job of keeping a barrier between the problem player and everyone else with help from the other players' teammates, and good teamwork on the rest of the crew for forming a triangle control. You can see the ARs moving, briskly to adjust their view and keep a good surrounding as the situation develops. So overall, solid response.
Okay. So yeah, again, just talking tactics. Crappy foul, definitely. Frustration foul. Referee gets there quickly. A couple people go back at him. He gets in there quickly, gets his body in between. More players come in, but everybody's pretty peacemaker at this point. So the referee, again, identifies the person who everybody's going to be upset at, which is the guy who committed the tackle. And as everything else evolves, pulls him out and moves him out of the way. So again, you'll see a similar tactic here. He doesn't have to grab him as much because it's definitely a less volatile situation, but he still keeps a hand on him and moves him away and keeps his body the entire time. So he moves him into a neutral space while the other ARs come in and make sure nothing else happens here. So it's a great tactic to get him moved away, get him over by his coach. A little small, probably unnoticed thing here, but this AR comes over by the other guy who might want to go at because he got upset. Comes and stands by him, so now nobody can make sure they go at them. Keeps him here. Good interaction with the coach. Confident, going to take care of it. Fourth official's doing a good job making sure the coach doesn't move anywhere. So this is all really well handled. Alihio's point, I think, is a very valid one. That while the guy who committed the foul, number 22, is very calm, he probably just viewed it as a tactical foul. He wasn't really probably trying to get the guy stuck the way that he did. But either way, he did. So the other player is still very upset. And probably not the right idea to bring him back in that quickly while he's still upset. Because here you see him begin to voice frustration. Now, the curious thing here, I'm guessing, is I think the referee created this problem. And so the thing that you need to think about is, does this orange player have a right to be upset right now? The answer is yes, absolutely, because that was a pretty rash challenge. And did the player do anything really that bad when he responded? Did he get up? Did he push the guy down? Did he grab him? No, he just sort of chest bumped him a little bit and got upset. So the question I would have for the referee here is, did you need the second caution? Did the player who took the foul in the 86th minute really need to be cautioned in this moment? Because I think everybody on the field fully expects 22 to get the caution. And when this player starts to be really upset, is saying, I got fouled, why are you talking to me right now? And so to issue a yellow card here to that, no problem. But that one is probably what created all the rest of this player. And even the other guy saying, why'd you give him a yellow card? All this body language here suggests to me that they're saying, why does this player get a yellow card? The player puts his head down. He's almost laughing about it. So my guess is that in this moment of the game, the orange player did not need to be cautioned here. He got upset. He went and got in the guy's face, but he didn't hit him. He didn't push him. He didn't do anything. He just went and got in his face and said, why did you just do that to me? So don't feel like you have to issue misconduct if you're not going to get anything out of it, and if the expectations aren't on the field that you give a yellow card to that player. Anybody disagree with that? Think differently than that? Victor, you're joining us. You've been in these games enough times. Thoughts there? Do we need the yellow card for the orange player?
The difficulty here is understanding the tactics of that player specifically. So last year, number 10 is, his name is Juan Pablo Cafa, and if the game is not going well, he's chipping at the opponent and he's chipping at the referee. As you can see here, he's imposing himself on the match official. This is a common tactic of that player and is not something that should be handled lightly. This player needs a lot of direction in order to keep him in line. Now, of course, he flares up because it's a tactical foul, and if he's the reason that there's a mass confrontation, then he would rightfully deserve a yellow card in cases of if he has actually done something.
Yes.
Now, at the lower level, parity always looks good, and it makes players happy. But at the professional level, there has to be evidence. There absolutely has to be evidence, because if you walk away with 2 yellow cards, it sounds lovely, but it is not always effective and is not always accurate. So the body language here can be confusing, but there could also very well be that Juan Pablo Cafa deserved a yellow card earlier in the match that wasn't given, and the referee has reached the end of his tether and decided, you know what, now is the time, because we've had a mass confrontation as a result of your frustration that has boiled over. So maybe there's no evidence in this moment that he has deserved the yellow card because he was fouled, but it could have been a combination of the 86 minutes worth of him chipping with the match official. And that just, for me, is having studied Juan Pablo, because I had to referee him last year, he could be difficult to manage.
All good information. Thank you. Any other questions on this clip?
Hey, Matt, I have a question. This is Juan. Do you see the referee is just pretty much ignoring the orange player when he's, pleading his case? What else could the referee have done? Could he have taken the time to give him an explanation? This is why you're getting the yellow.
Victor, you've been on the pitch with him before. What are your thoughts?
He's losing 2-0. Nothing's been working. I don't think carrying a conversation with him at this point would be effective, because if he hasn't calmed down and he's not willing, you look at his body language here, nothing's going to please him. So I wouldn't personally get dragged into this trying to plead my case, because I don't need to explain anything to anyone. I would have just calmly moved on. If this is early in the match, I'd give him 1 opportunity, maybe 2. But after you've made an effort, I wouldn't go back to listen to this, because you have a job to do and he doesn't need to be here for you to do that.
That was my gut as well, is, there are some players, if they're coming calmly at you and their body language suggests they're open to a conversation, then fine. Nothing about this guy's body language, the way he's approaching the referee, makes it look like he's interested in actually hearing. He's just venting frustration. So I think that's accurate. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. Take a look at number 3. This is an interesting one. It starts early, so let's stop for a second here. Right down here on the side of the technical area, this clip, when it got pulled, you didn't get the run up to it, but the ball goes out of play. 2 players both think it's their ball, and they both go run and grab it, and now suddenly we got a problem. So here we go. So this is a little bit more simple clip, so I'm not going to lead us through a lot of discussion of this one. There's just a couple of things I want to point out in going back and rewatching it. First and foremost, as soon as, I mean, this is anytime anybody goes off the field, 2 players into the technical area, your alerts need to be up, right? And look right now at both the assistant referee and the referee. Both sprinting, referee blowing the whistle, a high speed of movement to this situation. And you'll see here in a second as well how quickly the 4th official got in there. So all 3 referees got in there really quickly, which is really important here. They all showed the sense of urgency needed. 4th official here demonstrates, after that push, why maybe it's okay at this level to grab a hold of a player, because he looks a little bit ridiculous just trying to shove his arms out and steer a guy in the right direction without actually touching him. He never actually touches this player. Tries really hard not to touch him, but still get him where he wants him to go. So, perhaps just putting a hand on his shoulder there is an okay thing to do, just to move him where you want him. But does a good job to get his body in between and to usher him out of the right direction. AR keeps the other guy there. So this is actually a really well-handled situation. 3 referees get there all very quickly and sort out what could have been an ugly situation, particularly given that the bench is right there. Calming presence. Nobody's overreacting. And that's a big part of mass confrontations, is stay calm. And you see the 4th official still in here keeping his body and making sure that they can't get at each other. So this is really well handled. Get it sorted out, move on. Probably don't need any misconduct there, right? Next one. Let's have a look at this one. Who wants to take it?
Hey, Matt, this is Kevin Pham. I'll go ahead and take it.
All right. Thank you, sir. Here we go. We're going to watch it once, and then we'll come back to it and talk through it.
Cool.
Okay. Talk us through it, Kevin.
All right. So right off the bat, the thing I'm noticing right now is that it's the last minute of the game. So, pressure could be high. It's 3-1, but kind of going from there right off the free kick there. We have a lot of players kind of mixed up into the box, and then that's when the opponent, the striker there, kind of goes for a volley and kind of hits the defender pretty heavily there. And the first thing I noticed is that that's a pretty heavy foul. So not really sure if the referee blew a really hard whistle, but if he did, one thing that he kind of lacked was the urgency. And what I would have done differently is definitely sprinted right into that to break up any kind of confrontation that might occur most likely after that incident. And the referee kind of just paced and slowly walked towards that. And I think that kind of led and opened the door for the players can get frustrated, and that's when the pushing and the confrontation happened, and that's when the referee had to react to the confrontation and deal with that mess. And you see, as a result, there was some striking there, and the black player kind of fall down there. And another thing I noticed as well is that unfortunately the referee didn't have any support from the ARs. He was kind of left there by himself, and there was no triangle formed to kind of resolve that. So he's kind of in that mess by himself and kind of figuring out who to give the red card, trying to keep eyes on all the players by himself. So that was something that he had to deal alone, which was unfortunate. And he took the player right away with the red card that struck the player, and put the red card out to show that, okay, I'm going to ease the tension a little bit more. by just giving a straight red. So before anything else happens, and that was a little bit effective, and that's when things calmed down. But the one thing I really wish happened was that the ARs kind of came in and helped and assist the situation.
Okay. Anything else to add? Anybody want to add anything else to that? Okay. So let's start from the beginning of this one. The first problem here is that when this free kick is taken, so it's, you're right, it's the last minute of the game. The team that's losing 3-1 has a free kick at midfield. What are they going to do with it? They're going to dump it in the penalty area. Where did all the players go and set up? In the penalty area. Where's the referee? Really far from the penalty area, with his back to the penalty area, watching the taking of the free kick. So already we have a problem because he's really far from the drop zone. He's really far from anything. So if you're going to set up a free kick where you know it's going to go down in the penalty area, go down and get in the penalty area. Don't let him restart until you're there. Because already if he's 15 yards closer to this, when the actual foul of consequence happens, he's that much closer. So first and foremost, take up the right position on the field near the drop zone so you're close to it. Because when that happens, right now he is just way too far from play. And if he takes up a position here near the drop zone, he can move in a little bit as it bounces and be in a significantly improved position for when this happens. Just too far away here. So again, if he's into this space, when that happens, he's able to blow the whistle, move in quickly, and probably keep this whole thing from happening if he shows the urgency. So again, positioning is important here. It's why we talk about positioning as much as we did early in the year. If you're 15 yards closer to this when it happens, you may be able to prevent the rest of this. But instead, hefty foul. And again, stop. If he's right here, he can sprint in and he can stand right over the player and deal with it right away. There's no mass confrontation. Instead, he walks. Zero urgency. And that's a big flare. I mean, that's a pretty significant issue there. And it's not until players start to run in that he shows some urgency. So that first and foremost is the biggest problem, positioning and urgency into the situation. Now remember how we talked about how you position your body when you're moving a player out? He turns his back to everybody here. Right here, he's completely useless because he can't see anything that's going on behind him. And so as he tries to move the player out, he turns his back and now he can't see anything. At this moment in time, the player who committed the actual foul isn't the problem. It's all the other players who have piled in, and it's actually not the player who commits the foul who gets hit in the face. It's a different guy. He turns his back, nothing going, and somebody behind him gets hit in the face. Right there. So if he's able to get in there, get his body in, and keep others from getting in with more urgency, we can avoid this red card. Now the point about the assistant referees is accurate. At this point here, we want to see an AR in the picture. Definitely the AR closest to the play needed to have run in at this point and probably been off in the right of our screen. And unfortunately it doesn't happen. Needs to happen next time. As we move through this, I'm a little bit conflicted about this one and the showing of the red card this quickly. Because there are still players around. There's an opposing player here. And if this player has a really strong reaction to being sent off, now you've got another point of conflict here. So this works out all right. But in this moment, you've got an opponent holding on to another opponent who you're about to send off. And if he gets upset about that sending off, there's now a guy that he can go after again. So unless you really truly need it to calm a situation, which I think this one was already calming before it happened, slow down with the issuing of the misconduct. Because in this moment, if this player reacts poorly to being sent off, you got another guy who can get hit in the face here. So this feeling did not feel like there needed to be a red card with that kind of urgency. Get it sorted out, let everybody know you're going to take it care of, get the players separated, then issue the misconduct. You also need to talk to assistant referees in this situation before you issue misconduct. He doesn't consult with anybody before he actually issues the misconduct. So take a moment, talk to folks, get it sorted out, and then issue your misconduct. Any thoughts or issues with this? Okay. We're going to take two more. I'm going to skip some of the more difficult ones. I want to show you two, I guess one good example, and then we'll look at a tough one at the end here. This is an excellent example, if you're comfortable doing it, of the kind of engagement you can have with players in a USL game. So first of all, breaking this down, immediately right here, he recognizes a potential problem. You can see him now starting to take a quick step. Once the ball's on the ground and there's two players around this player, he recognizes this is an opportunity for problem. There's no trouble yet, but there's potential for trouble. And already he's moving in to get there quickly. Before the trouble actually happens, at this moment, he's already sprinting in when the guy's just trying to put the ball down on the ground. So that by the time the problem actually happens, he's right on top of it and can immediately get his body in between. Now, Babu is a big man, and he's strong, and he's a very, very big presence there. And so he can get between two big men, grab a hold of him. He's a very nice guy, so right now he's being very calm, and he's keeping his body, and you can see he's got a hold of the guy, and he's keeping this from escalating between the two players. Assistant referee gets there. Everybody else is just playing peacemaker at that point. He keeps his body between the problem players. And then removes, you'll see here, removes the guy who's actually the problem at this point, number 20. He's the one who wrapped up the guy, wouldn't let him go. He's the one still holding on to his jersey at this point. He's the problem in this. So he grabs him and he gets him out. And now everybody else is good. Everybody's calm, peacemaking. Fourth official gets there. All good work. So it's an extreme example, but a good example of how a referee can use physicality and presence to make sure something doesn't escalate. And something you can think about doing if you're comfortable and if the environment is such that it can happen. I would not suggest you do this in an NPSL game or adult amateur game, but at the professional level, it's a tactic that can be used. Questions, thoughts, disagreements? Okay. Then we're going to look at the last one and we're going to move on, and it's a bit of a long one. Who wants to take this one for us? Seeking a volunteer. All right, we're going to have a little bit of fun tonight then. Bob Sabella, can you hear me? You on the call, Bob?
I am.
All right, you lead us through this one, huh?
Go for it.
All right, we're going to watch the video and then we'll come back to it.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to pause it there. We don't need to watch the rest of it, but I want to play that again. Bob, talk us through.
Okay, defending team trying to get the ball out of the area. As they are succeeding to do so, the forward commits an assassin foul, a karate style foul. The referee recognizes immediately, and he's in a great position to quickly show a card showing everybody that he's going to take care of business, and quickly moves in to defuse the situation. I like the referee here. What the ARs, they have failed to recognize who is approaching to this mess. Goalkeepers are not to leave the 18-yard line, and the AR's job is to make sure and foremost that goalkeepers don't come anywhere around here. They seem to be scattered, confused, who to handle what. When especially the close AR should have made sure that goalkeeper doesn't come out of his area and go towards him, and the other AR quickly stops the other goalkeeper. Goalkeepers are the brutes of the teams and shouldn't be anywhere around. And anyway, the law says if they leave the 18-yard area towards mass confrontation, they should be carded. So the AR should have immediately concentrated on stopping these two brute guys. And if they have succeeded with that, then they would have continued with the triangle. I think this situation wouldn't have got out of hand. I feel that the center referee basically was faced with a single-handed situation here, unfortunately.
All right, so let's break it down a little bit more. Thank you, Bob. So let's break it down a little bit more. Play coming out of defending area. Referee's moving with play. We're still in the first half here, but score is important, right? Miami's beating San Francisco 3-0. Miami's bringing the ball out of the area when the San Francisco player does that. Pretty nasty tackle. So the thing that the referee fails to recognize here is this guy. Your goal here as a referee when you see a tackle this bad is to get there quickly, and more importantly, you need to beat that guy to the point of the foul. Because now number 35 is going to get sent off for that. Elbow to the face. When if the referee had made a concerted effort to get there more quickly, possibly could have been avoided. So as soon as you see a tackle that rash, you need to immediately sprint towards it. Referee doesn't. Which allows that to happen. And still doesn't show enough urgency to get in there. So possibly could have been avoided. Hard to know. But by showing some urgency towards the situation and trying really hard to beat that left back to the confrontation, at this point they're about equidistance. If the referee picks up on it as soon as that foul happens, that the player is sprinting in, at this point the referee can beat the guy there if he's already moving with urgency. He doesn't recognize, and now we have a sending off. Breaking it down further, by this point, I don't mind that the referee is not involved. So if you can't prevent it, once you get 5, 6, 8 players piling into this thing like this, that's not something you want to be in the middle of. So well done from the referee to stay on the outside of it. Let it get sorted out. Assistant referee finds a place to grab the problem solver. So well done. 35 is the guy who's everybody's going to go after. Assistant referee grabs him and isolates him, while Adekora, even though he looks like he's putting him in a headlock, is actually being peacemaker here, gets it sorted out. The important thing about goalkeepers, Bob is right, goalkeepers have no business getting into a mass confrontation. The thing where you need to be smart is what role is the goalkeeper playing. So this goalkeeper in yellow here, his team is the team that's aggrieved right now. His team took the nasty tackle and the elbow to the face, and he comes in and he's getting his purple players out of the situation and telling them to stop. The goalkeeper you need to worry about is this guy. He's the San Francisco goalkeeper. He's run 70 yards and immediately goes to the player who's down who got hit in the face and creates additional problems. So in this moment, you have a goalkeeper who's trying to calm people down, his own team down, and has only gone and touched his own players, versus this goalkeeper who's run 70 to 80 yards to go and bend over and do something to the player, his opponent, who was hit in the face. So absolutely, this goalkeeper in red needs to be sanctioned here. The goalkeeper in the yellow, I think you're going to struggle to sanction him here because he's being a peacemaker and he's only addressing his own players. And we don't want to punish that behavior. Assistant referee does a good job. Again, we've talked about techniques. He keeps his hand on the player who's the problem and keeps him away. And that AR's only job at this point is to hold on to that guy, which he does. He keeps him right there and he never moves away from him. And he uses the technique we just talked about here, where he puts the player to his back, wraps his arms behind him, and keeps his eyes on everything else. So excellent work from this assistant referee. Keeps moving with him, keeps him there the whole time. That's excellent work. Referee wanders around. Coaches are all solid, but I want to point out the fourth official here. It's the purple team who's going to be the problem. They're the ones that are upset right now because two of their players are hurt. So the fourth official steps onto the field, turns around, and blocks any path any player may have from coming off the bench. So now he's doing nothing but staring at the technical areas to let them know you are not to leave your technical area. So as much as the fourth official may feel like he needs to run over there and be involved, when the play is across the field like that, his primary responsibility is keeping his eyes in the technical area and making sure that nobody from those technical areas leave. So he's actually got his back to the conflict right now, making sure that his primary responsibility is taken care of. So this is excellent work by the fourth official. And as it sorts out, players are calm now. Now the referees will come together, deal with what they need to deal with, take their time. But you notice he still hasn't sent the player off. He just started to reach for his back pocket. Tension's flared a little bit more, so he stops. He's going to get everybody good and calm. Assistant referees backing people away. Get all the problem people out of the situation. Get this situation good and calm before you deal with it. Mr. Heineman has to get his piece in because that's just the guy that he is. And then walk over to where the player is. He's lost him now because the AR let go of him, but gets him sent off, no problems. And I believe he does come back, yes, with the caution to the goalkeeper. So this difficult situation, possible the referee could have prevented it with a higher sense of awareness and a greater sense of urgency to get to the problem. But once it started, incredibly well done in managing this, keeping it from escalating, identifying the right places that need to be addressed, and then issuing in this situation the correct misconduct. The hit to the face and the goalkeeper for running all the way in. Any thoughts or questions on that one?
Matt, was the original tackle not sanctioned?
The original tackle was committed by the player who then elbowed somebody in the face. So the more serious of the two was sanctioned. And if we fast forward just a little bit here, the referee goes and finds the left back from Miami who ran in and created the confrontation, got himself hit in the face, but did so by sprinting 40 yards, 30 yards to get in the guy's face, and issues misconduct. So a job well done here by the referees to make sure the player sent off was the problem, and the two biggest problems in the rest of the ensuing mass confrontation, one from each team, are sanctioned. So you get the parity for the mass confrontation afterwards, and you address the issue that started the mass confrontation to begin with. So like I said, ideally referee would have recognized this as a flashpoint and gotten there quicker and potentially prevented. But once it got going, a difficult mass confrontation with a high level of animosity that was addressed pretty quickly and well done. Thoughts or questions? All right. Yo, go ahead. Yeah. Who's coming on?
So it's Lee. He cautions number 7, which was the original player who got fouled. Number 20 was the guy who got leveled.
I apologize.
Yeah, so if you watch it again, number 7 is, I mean, he's right there, so he doesn't go running in to get involved, but he's definitely the most involved in everything after number 20 gets decked.
Perfect. See, coaches are got it sorted out. There was a nice moment here where earlier the coaches got themselves all sorted out. So well done by fourth official. Well done by crew. Anybody else? Thoughts, comments? All right. Then at this point, those are all the videos I want to go through. There are a couple more on here you can go see yourself. I think one more good example, a couple more not as good examples. So I'd encourage you to watch those on your own. But in attempt to shorten our time together a little bit, I think I'll bring us to a close here. Any final questions, thoughts, any additions for anybody? All right, then everybody have a good night. And if you're working games this weekend, good luck. Good night, everybody.
Thanks. Good night.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thanks, Matt. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Good night.
Thank you, Matt.